What's up, beautiful people? Welcome to Plan Path Podcast, your choice up for book reviews and crucial conversations. My name is Oluwatosin Abiodun-Lisk. Today we are reviewing part 3 of How Successful People Grow by John C. Maxwell. I would encourage you to listen to chapter 1, verse 1. I said chapter 1. I would encourage you to listen to the first part, the second part, and you cannot be enjoying this wonderful series alone. Make sure you're sharing with your family and friends. This book is available for sale on our website. You know what? Just type Plan Path Educational Consult on your browser. We are going to pop up and you would see our website there. Just shop. Bills on you, man. Today we are doing chapter 4, Accept Responsibility. This first step of learning. We tend to think of responsibility as something given to us by someone who is in a position of authority, such as a parent or an employer, and that is often the case. But responsibility is also something you must be willing to take. And after more than 45 years leading and mentoring people, have come to the conclusion that responsibility is the most important ability that a person can possess. Nothing happens to advance our potential until we step up and say, I am responsible. If you don't take responsibility, you give up control of your life. Taking responsibility for your life, your actions, your mistakes, and your growth puts you in a place where you are able to learn and often able to win. In sports, that's called being in the right position. When players put themselves in the right position, they are able to successfully play. It is not a guarantee that they will make a play or that they will win. However, if they are out of position, it is almost impossible for them to make a play. Miss enough plays and you will lose the game. Every time we fail, we can choose to put ourselves in the painful but potentially profitable place of taking responsibility so that we can take the right actions for our success, or we can avoid the temporary pain of responsibility and make excuses. If we respond right to failure by taking responsibility, we can look at our failure and learn from it. As a result, we won't be as prone to making the same mistakes again. However, if we bail out on our responsibility, we don't examine our failures and don't learn from them. As a result, we often experience the same failures and losses repeatedly over time. When that happens, we can't win. What happens when we don't take responsibility? People avoid responsibility all the time, especially when they fail or make mistakes. They just don't want to face up to those things. If we do that long enough, a pattern begins to emerge in our lives. 1. We develop a victim mentality. Rather than taking responsibility for their lives, many people are trying to take the easy way out by establishing themselves as victims of society, the economy, a conspiracy, or some alleged discrimination. A victim mindset causes people to focus on what they cannot do instead of what they can do. It is a recipe for continued failure. How do we avoid this fate? By developing gratitude for things we do have and taking responsibility. Do those things and our lives can begin to transform around. 2. We have an unrealistic perspective of how life works. Life does not always work the way we would like it to. If we had our way, it would be easier, it would be fair, it would be more fun. There would be no pain and suffering. We would have to work only if we felt like it, and we would never die. But that isn't how life works. Life isn't easy. It's not fair. We do experience pain. Even the best of jobs includes unpleasant tasks and has a time of drudgery. And every one of us will die. Is that fair? No. Life isn't fair. In life, we all get better than we deserve at times and worse than we deserve at others. And there is no guarantee that it will balance out in the end. We can get stuck by asking why, but seeking answers to that question really helps. We may never know why things happen. If we focus on the why, we may never make real progress in our lives. Another pitfall is comparing ourselves to others. That can lead to tremendous frustration and dissatisfaction because you can always find someone better off than you are. Benjamin Franklin wrote, those things that hurt instruct. That's true, but only if you make an effort to understand how life works and accept it. Instead of focusing on why things happen, we are better off learning how things work. There are more lessons to be learned, and those lessons prepare us for future battles. Number 3, we constantly engage in blame storming. Another pattern that people fall into when they don't take responsibility is what I call blame storming. That's the creative process used for finding an appropriate scapegoat. One time I was counseling a man who had made a mess of his life and relationships. As we got started in the process of working on his issues, he told me, there are 3 things wrong with me: my wife, my mother, and my son. Now that is blame storming. It's my understanding that insurance companies are the recipients of many creative excuses from drivers who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. I enjoy reading these kinds of things, and I hope you will too. Here are some of my favorites. As I reached the intersection, a head sprang up, obscuring my vision. An invisible car came out of nowhere, struck my car and vanished. Interesting. The telephone pole was fast approaching. I attempted to swerve out of its path when it struck my front end. The indirect cause of this accident was a little guy in a small car with a big mouth. I'd been driving my car for 4 years when I fell asleep at the wheel and had an accident. I was on my way to the doctors with rear end trouble when my universal joint gave way, causing me to have an accident. To avoid hitting the bomber of the car in front of me, I struck the pedestrian. Any form of blame storming may be handy in the moment, but it is not helpful in the long run. You can't grow and learn if your focus is on finding someone else to blame instead of looking at your own shortcomings. We give away the choice to control our lives. Who is responsible for what happens in your life? Do you believe you should take personal responsibility, or do you feel as if that is outside of your control and there is little or nothing you can do about it? Psychologists say that some people possess an internal locus of control where they rely primarily on themselves for the gains and losses of their lives. Others possess an external locus of control where they blame others for when something goes wrong. Which group is more successful? The group that takes personal responsibility, of course. Which people are more content? The ones who take personal responsibility. Which people learn from their mistakes and keep growing and improving? The people who take responsibility. Taking responsibility for your life is a choice. That doesn't mean you believe you are in control of everything in your life. That's not humanly possible. But you can take responsibility for yourself and every choice you have. Abolitionist Henry Ward Beecher asserted, God asks no man whether you will accept life. That is not a choice. You must take it. The only choice is how. How will you approach your life? Will you simply allow life to happen to you? Or will you seize the choices you make with enthusiasm and responsibility? We eliminate any possibility of growth for success. 5. That's 5. When we fail to take responsibility, not only do we develop a victim mentality, embrace an unrealistic perspective of how life works, engage in blamestorming, and give away the choice to control our lives, we also eliminate any real possibility of growth for success. That is the real tragedy of failing to be responsible. Real success is a journey. We have to approach it with a long-term mindset. We have to hang in there, stay focused, and keep moving forward. Excuses are like exits along the road of success that leads us nowhere. Taking exits is easy, but it gets us off track. It is impossible to go from excuses to success, so we need to get back on the road and keep moving forward. If we want to do something and we take responsibility, we will find a way out. If not, we will find an excuse. That may take the pressure off us and make us feel better in the short term, but in the long run, it won't make us successful. Richard Bach says, "Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they are yours. I may not like it, but I'm responsible for who I am and where I am today. My present circumstances are a direct result of my past choices. My future will be as a result of my current thoughts and actions. I'm responsible, so are you." Let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
This sound is going around the world. Angels of favor are going to be released as these sounds are listened to.
And angels of accepting responsibility will also land on all of us. What happens when we learn to be responsible? In you gotta keep dancing, Tim Hansel says, pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. A similar thing can be said when it comes to taking responsibility. Losses are inevitable, but excuses are optional. When we move from excuses to responsibility, our lives begin to change dramatically. Here's how. We take our first step in learning. When you take responsibility for yourself, you take responsibility for your learning. The earlier you do this, the better the potential results. If you take responsibility when you were young, and you have a better chance of gaining wisdom. If you take responsibility when you are young, you have a better chance of gaining wisdom as you grow older. For some of us, it takes a long time. I sometimes feel like that only after turning 65 did I begin to understand life. Now that I'm officially a senior citizen, I can say there are two things I know about my life. First, it has contained many surprises. My life didn't turn out as I thought it would. Some things turned out better than I imagined. Some things worse. No matter who you are, it's impossible to know how your life will turn out. Second, as long as I take responsibility for the things I can control in my life and try my best to learn from them, I can feel contented. Unfortunately, my personal challenge has been keeping myself from trying to control things outside my sphere of influence. Whenever I overreach in that way and things have gone wrong, it has caused me to lose focus, waste energy, and feel discouraged. That has been a hard lesson for me. If you can find the right balance where you take responsibility for the things you can control and let go of the things you cannot, you will accelerate your learning process. But even if you learn the lesson late, you can still benefit from it. 2. We see things in their proper perspective. Taking responsibility for yourself does not mean taking yourself too seriously. When you do that, it carries over into a negative perspective in other areas of life. Taking responsibility doesn't mean cultivating a negative attitude. It means being willing to see things from a better perspective. I've met people who allow their losses to overwhelm them. They say things like, "That incident ruined my life," or that person makes me so mad. The truth is that nothing can ruin your life or make you mad without your permission. If you find yourself thinking along those lines, stop immediately. You have the power to choose another way of thinking, and you can learn how to do that by maintaining the proper perspective. The best learners are people who don't see their losses as and failures as permanent. They see them as temporary, or as Patricia Sellers once put it, the most successful people at bouncing back the most successful people at bouncing back view failure not like a cancer, but rather like puberty, awkward and uncomfortable, but a transforming experience that precedes maturity. 3. We stop repeating our failures. What is the major difference between people who succeed and people who don't? It's not failing. Both groups fail. However, the ones who take responsibility for themselves learn from their failures and do not repeat them. If you think about it, how did you learn to walk when you were a baby? You tried something that didn't work and fell down. Then you tried something that didn't work and fell down. You probably tried hundreds of approaches, maybe thousands, all of which taught you what didn't work when it came to walking. And finally, you try something that did work. That is the way you learn. That is the way you learn to walk, eat, talk, ride a bike, throw a ball, and all the other basic tasks of living. Why would you think you ever get to a place where you can learn without failing and making mistakes? If you want to learn more, you need to do more. But you also need to pay attention to what's not working and make adjustments accordingly. Failure isn't the best teacher, neither is experience. Only evaluated experience teaches us. That's where the profit lies in any experience we have. That's what helps us to learn and ultimately to win. 4. We grow stronger. Eleanor Roosevelt observed, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I've lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along." You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Every time you take responsibility, face your fear, and move forward despite experiencing losses, failures, mistakes, and disappointments, you become stronger. And if you keep doing the things you ought to do when you ought to do them, the day will come when you will get to do things you want to do when you want to do them. 5. We back up our words with our behavior. The ultimate step in taking responsibility is making sure our words line up with our actions line up with our words. If you are willing to put your name on anything you do, that indicates a high level of integrity. To put your life on the line indicates an even higher one. That's what the author and consultant Frances Cole Jones described in her book, The Wow Factor. She writes, "In the Marines, riggers, the people we pack, that is, reassemble after use, parachute for other Marines, have to make at least one jump a month. Who pack their chutes? They do. One of the parachutes that they pack for others to use is chosen at random, and the rigger has to jump it. This system makes sure that no one gets sloppy after all. The chute you are packing may be your own." The Roman army used a similar technique to make sure bridges and aqueducts were saved. The person who designed the arcs had to stand under each arc while the scaffolding was being removed. If you want your company to last as Roman bridges have, ask yourself if everyone is truly responsible for the outcomes by these measures. And if you are yourself, are you performing every task with the concentration and commitment that you might if a life depended on it? It may sound like hyperbole when Jones asks if you are taking responsibility for the tasks you perform as if your life depends on it, but it is not really extreme. Why? Because our lives will depend on what we do. The life we have is only the life we get here on earth, and it's not a dress rehearsal. Every minute we waste is gone forever. We can either choose to take responsibility for what we do with it, or we can make excuses. I hope, like me, you are choosing to face reality and take responsibility. If you do that, Then you'll be ready to dig in and focus on improvement, which is the subject of the next chapter. Guys, did you hear that? This is the year to take absolute responsibility. Whatever happened last year is gone. The past is gone. The future depends on what we are going to do today. So take responsibility. That's what our admonish you today. Take responsibility for your learning. We are here to help you. There are enough books for you to read. If you want to take action on your parenting, on your learning, Plant Path Podcast is the absolute place to be. We sell books, as you know already. We do trainings. We do trainings, teacher trainings in offices on soft skills, on mental health. And we are just out there to make learning easy and comfortable for everybody. We are instructional designers. We feature on learning platforms. We build learning platforms. So if you have a learning platform you are working on, we are your go-to blog. We are the right person and the right place to call, guys. We also consult for schools and learning institutions. We help propel your work. We bring out the joy in what you're doing. We propel your work and the effort you put in your educational platform. So you know what? Make sure you're doing business with us. Make sure you're staying close. Don't be a stranger. Don't be far from us. Don't go and we'll not see you for many weeks. And you now come back next month to listen to podcasts. You need to take responsibility. Consistently take responsibility, because from taking responsibility because taking responsibility is really the first step in learning. Okay, all right. Okay, guys. It's so nice to do this episode with you. Next week is going to be the last episode for this book, because January is going to come to an end. So yeah, enjoy this book review. Thanks for listening thus far. Make sure you're sharing with your friends and your family and your loved ones, because you can't be enjoying such an amazing book review alone. Take care. See you next week by the grace of God. Bye.